I'm here with Ian Balina at my home in Las Vegas, and Ian is somebody who has created all sorts of business opportunities for himself, from being involved with YouTube, for being an executive at a tech company, and to also organizing his own ventures throughout his youth. And he came in today to do an interview, so we're going to get started.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Cool.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome.
So my name is Ian Balina. By day, I work at IBM in sales. And surprisingly, I've actually been able to create multiple businesses on the side while still having a day job. So that's kind of my claim to fame, so to speak. So I have a startup business I do. I also do short-term real estate. I also sell stuff on e-commerce via Amazon. And right now I also have a blog where I help people and other people in their 20s help build a six-figure lifestyle.
Nice. So one of the things that was kind of cool is that you got introduced through our friend Drew, and he told me that when you were throughout your youth, you were able to create your own six-figure income. And I guess I was interested in for you sharing how you were able to do that.
I mean, so it's been a process. I recall I was back in graduate school, I was a broke college student, had no money. Then just overnight, it kind of flipped, where I went from just being a college student that could barely afford something on the dollar menu in McDonald's to being able to go to anywhere and buy anything I wanted without really having to worry about the price. And that happened overnight. And it happened for me just kind of putting in the work at an early age. I recall being 14 years old, going out there reading books on how to make money. So by the time I kind of went out there to the real world, I was able to apply that knowledge and already had kind of that fundamental understanding of how to make money. So the first step in terms of how I made money was work as a freelancer. So I have a technical background. I was an engineer. So I began freelancing and doing projects. So people would hire me to basically build apps for them. So I was doing that on the side while working full time. Then from there, I was able to start doing other ventures. I began doing a startup business. So now I have an on-demand company called Peer Hustle, which is basically on-demand freelancers. So I got that idea working as a freelancer, basically going to events and filming people. And I noticed that, hey, I'm here filming this event, but I don't really know where I can hire a second shooter very quickly. Because yes, there are other freelancing sites out there like Upwork or so forth, right? But these freelancing sites are more for online freelancers. Where do you find local freelancers, right? Your models, makeup artists, stylists, photographers, right? People who can help you film or let's say take photos for an event video. Where do you find them very quickly? So I was like, you know what? Let me build this myself. So I built Peer Hustle. So I've been going out there building all these different businesses. One from there, tried other ventures like Amazon. I have an Amazon FBA business where now it's pretty much on autopilot, where I dropship items from China, and they come here to America, to Amazon's warehouse, and I don't touch anything, and I make money every single month. Then while traveling for sales at IBM, I wanted to find other streams to bring in more money. So every time I travel with IBM, I put my house up on Airbnb, to a point where it kind of took off, and I began making so much money, to a point that sometimes after I came back on a trip, I would just go back and just stay with my parents so I can make some extra money, right? So just taking all these different things, they start to add up. Then I kind of reached a point where I was like, hey, you know what? I'm making good money, but how do I 10x that? So just by taking different advice and also applying some social dynamics in the corporate world, I've been able to kind of navigate the channels. And just last year, I was able to almost triple my income, just by using real-life social dynamics in the real world and applying them in the business world.
I like those tools because those are all things that people could do, everything from Airbnb to Amazon to whatever. And I guess when you just add up everything, it's something that almost anyone can kind of do. Is that the focus or the core of what you're teaching your clients?
Right, yeah. So right now my goal is to not really coach people, but to give out information for free. Because I have lots of friends who ask me, hey, how do you build this lifestyle? You're only 28 years old, making 400 grand a year. How do you build this lifestyle? Right? Because we see you still have a full-time job, but it seems like you have 20 things you're always working at the same time. Because I have 2 books I'm trying to post. I have a book coming out next week. I also have a documentary I put out two years back. So how are you doing all these things while having a full-time job? Everything happened by design, right? Because I recall being a consultant at Deloitte, I was working 80-hour work weeks. And I knew I couldn't really do all these side hustles while working as a consultant. So I changed my lifestyle. I found a job that lets me work at home and basically work less than 40 hours per week. And that was sales. So I didn't really hesitate. I just jumped straight in, made a shift, and boom, after 2 months, I left Deloitte, went to IBM, worked in sales, and now I have the perfect dream job. Right? Either I'm at home and basically have the freedom, don't really have a manager over my shoulders telling me what to do. So I'm basically in control of my money.
And now with the IBM, so IBM's like a 40-hour week job. How much time are you spending with these other companies?
I mean, so I definitely do put in the work, lots of late nights, right? On average, I sleep anywhere from 2 to 3 a.m., right? But just kind of having a job that's flexible, I can set my own schedule, right? Because once you kind of streamline everything, things kind of become a lot easier to manage and handle.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're taking on both the entrepreneurial spirit while having a full-time job, and I think that's great because so many people that I know will put it all in and just become an entrepreneur. And if you're successful, it's awesome. But it's very rare that I'll run into somebody that is kind of taking the risk out of it by having that backup jobs that could support and have a float no matter whether that venture goes down or up. And it's very rare to even talk about it or think about it.
Yeah, so I think the main reason people kind of have issues with that is that they have a job that isn't really flexible. So if you're able to find that perfect job that lets you have that perfect work-life balance, right? You can then pursue other things on the side without really having anything without having anything blocking you from achieving your side hustle goals, right? So with me, I was able to leave the job where I was working too much and didn't really have that freedom or flexibility to having a job where I have more control.
And the reason why you have the job is it because you have this passion for what you're doing with IBM?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so I love sales because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and sales is almost the closest thing to being an entrepreneur, but still being in the corporate world, right? So my job is to go out there and hunt large clients, right? I work in retail and travel, so I have to go out there and hunt large top clients like Samsung, Staples, Macy's, find their key execs, get meetings with them, right? And sometimes I just get these meetings from just using social dynamics. So some tools like your team has taught me in the past, right? Going out there, networking. Like recently, I have a meeting next week with a customer of ours, director of IT. I got that from LinkedIn. I didn't pay anything fancy for it, right? LinkedIn. I just went on LinkedIn, basically sent him a nice, concise message. Had lunch with him 2 weeks back. Went to have lunch, basically built rapport, network, found out his problem, discussed how us as a company can solve that problem. And now I'll be flying to talk to his entire team next week. And hopefully in 3 months or so, we can close a big deal.
That's great. One of the things that I think about when I think about the people I've interviewed so far, I think that the majority of them will say things like, I have a difficult time working for other people, I want independence. But it sounds like you both enjoy the freedom, but at the same time you like working in this larger infrastructure.
Right.
What is it about being an entrepreneur that you do like versus what do you like about working for somebody else?
So the best part about being an entrepreneur, in my opinion, is getting your idea and manifesting that into reality, right? Because, for example, my company, Peer Hustle, that was something that at first was just a pure idea I had on my couch. Then it became an idea on a piece of paper. Then I was able to take that thing, and now I can actually see that idea in the App Store, or see other people downloading, using your app, sending you emails, telling you things to fix, telling you things they like. So seeing something that was just simply an idea, now being out there in the real world, is something I just love, I cherish. Right? So I think being an entrepreneur at the core is being able to take nothing and turn that into something. Then working in the corporate world, corporate world still gives you that steady paycheck, right? So for me, I've used that steady paycheck to finance my other businesses, right? So I think that's kind of vital. I don't think people should necessarily just jump and go full-time into entrepreneurship if they have no plan, and especially if they have no money.
Well, at the same time, you're working with IBM because you said earlier that you had a passion for what you're doing. Right. But what do you like about being in that structure? A structure where you're not necessarily the boss of the whole company of IBM.
So I would say it's a great structure because I get to work with some of the top people in the world, right? So I work with IBM Watson, for example. And IBM has lots and lots of smart people. There are times where you'd be in a room that there's so many smart people that you're just shocked, right? Everybody just brings so much knowledge and education they can teach you about something. Whether it's Watson, whether it's sales, whether it's technology, big data, analytics, right? Everybody brings value in IBM. So being in a large company and seeing how one of the best companies in the world operates, I can then take those things they're doing well and try to incorporate them into into my small companies.
I think that's a really good skill to have, to see what you could learn from other organizations. I myself have worked for many other companies. I could still work with another company. I would have no problem with that. But I really love what I'm doing with Real Social Dynamics. But you do learn a lot from being a part of other companies.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Just kind of seeing how they always have a plan. Everything's a system, right? So initially, I have a habit of being very off the cuff, right, freestyling things. So just kind of seeing how a company has order and how they have different ways to check and make sure everything is going the way it's supposed to be, and having feedback every single step of the way, and seeing how they're doing that at a worldwide scale, then being able to learn from that and apply it yourself.
I also think it's interesting that you're working with Deloitte, because a consultant from Deloitte that we brought on was what kind of turned around our entire company.
Oh, really?
Who was a management consultant that helped us create our whole board of directors, processes, procedures, communication protocol, and everything like that. And the cool thing about being a management consultant is you learn about asking the right questions, you get to meet with high-level executives, and my friend became an entrepreneur in addition to working for a tech company, just like you. He's doing kind of the both worlds kind of thing. But I have a lot of respect for that side of the world. What did you learn from Deloitte that you believe that's helping you now?
Oh, wow. I mean, so I was there very briefly, to be honest, right? But I just learned more to take a gamble on something, because actually I was only there for about 3 months at Deloitte. But I learned it wasn't for me. And I learned that I'm not going to sit here and wait for 2 years to figure out it's not for me, right? So once I got a job offer from IBM, I just jumped ship, right? Because I realized that I'm still an entrepreneur at heart, and I want to have time to do things on the side. So not being able to have that work-life balance, I was able to figure that out very quickly and realize I have to move on to something else.
Where is most of your revenue coming from? Is it from IBM or your own ventures?
Yeah, I would say IBM mainly commission on deals. So basically, I mean, so I can't really get IBM like that, but I would say, so for example, if I close a big deal, I get commission back on there, right? So I have that incentive. This is why I like sales. There isn't really a cap on how much money I can make, right? So the bigger deal I bring in, the more money I make.
I got you. So IBM is an infrastructure that has kind of a refined system, whereas most people will have kind of the small business attitude. Or, I mean, I've never really interviewed anyone from my channel from a large company. Like, I think IBM was, what is it, one of the 500 largest companies in the world?
Top 20 companies in the world.
Yeah, so the infrastructures, the systems, the processes, everything that you're doing is so much more refined than, say, a small business where you have like a one-man shop. I don't really see them as like real businesses, other than like the additional income stream that you can make, where you kind of like do an Airbnb thing, and it's not like you have an infrastructure, but it's a business line that you could create yourself. So it's a company that generates money. But IBM's like a real business with massive complexities and moving parts. And I believe that most companies that have moving parts will either just disintegrate, or because they're able to successfully make those moving parts magically work together, which is a huge challenge, you're going to make a lot more money from taking advantage of all the different things. Now, it sounds like what you've done is you created a life where you have a lot of moving parts, but they're completely different businesses, each different in its own. What are some of the streamlined processes and things that you see IBM doing that's really working well and that you think you've learned a lot from?
Oh, wow. I mean, everything has a system in IBM, right? From your expense reports to learning how to train and get knowledge from IBM. They took me through 1 year of training before they sent me out in front of a customer. And when they did, I had a mentor, somebody who'd been doing it for a while. I got to see how they talk to the customer, how they prospect, how they close deals, how they have meetings. So they didn't take a gamble on me. They make people sure their employees are ready to go out there in the field. I mean, the whole time I was getting paid full salary. I was getting paid a full paycheck while I'm still training, right, for 1 full year. But everything they taught me is something that I'll keep for the next 30 years of my life. And not only that, but also helped me in my other businesses. I mean, because really, IBM has helped me to become a better salesperson. Because before that, I came from a very technical background. But the things I've been able to learn in the last 1 year as a salesperson from IBM has been valuable to a point I think I'm going to make I'll make more money in the long term from everything I've learned right now, not just with IBM, but in my future businesses.
Now, when you're making sales, you're making it on a B2B level with people that are making very large purchases. They're institutional clients. And these are people that I definitely want to learn how to talk to you on a much better way because I'm used to doing the B2C thing. And you have also, but you were doing it on the smaller businesses where your main focus is on B2B. And the way you communicate with, say, an institution is totally different than how I communicate with people or treat more like everyone, like a bro. I'm like, give them a hug, give them a handshake, versus like, go out to like the Ritz-Carlton, have a meeting versus hanging out with your buddies over drinks. It's like, it's a totally different world, how you talk to people, how you communicate and everything like that.
It's actually, it can be the same world though.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, so every time I closed, like for example, the last deal I closed, it came to a point where I'm so close with the customer. Every time I'm in town, I just call them, we grab drinks, we go out to a basketball game, right? So we have that level of rapport because at the end of the day, the customer buys in you. I mean, sure, I have a big brand behind me in IBM, but I'm competing with the Amazons of the world, with Google, right? So there are lots of big companies in the room. So being able to have that rapport with the customer at the end of the day is what really they buy into. But me working in a big company, I can understand the different levels of complexity as a second company is going through and talk to them and see how our team can help with that, right? So let's say I'm talking to the director of IT. I know he's not going to make the final call. Maybe I have to go to talk to procurement. And I know maybe they have to talk to the CIO. So being able to navigate this corporate matrix at the same time and basically find the key players and convince them and get them to come onto your side to buy into the deal.
That makes sense. I guess I understand the personal relationships you have to do with any kind of networking. What I'm thinking is the way that we'll probably present to somebody is we'll show them a bunch of really fun videos and entertain them. I guess what kind of entertainment are you doing in terms of, is it always like a PowerPoint presentation or some kind of sales pitch or no?
No, so for example, I have a meeting next week in New York. And so prior to I got the meeting via LinkedIn. Then we had lunch. Then we have a meeting on Wednesday morning. But I'm having dinner with a customer on Tuesday. Then I'm taking them out to a next basketball game against the Heat. So we'll just be out there talking, watching the game, and the entire time we'll be out for about 2 or 3 hours. But I only talk business probably 5% of the time. The rest is just me talking to the customers, getting to know them as people. Right? So we do fun things like that. Then when we have the meeting on Wednesday, right, they know me as a person, I know them as a person, right? So we feel like there's common ground.
Makes sense. When I've tried to buy CRM software from companies, I've been invited to basketball games and suites and stuff like that. Since like it's part of that process. I guess it's just, I guess when you're doing with those kind of budgets, you're just able to do it in a much more classy way. We'll invite people to free seminars and entertain them at RC free tour. But we're not inviting people to suites at NBA games and stuff like that. On the other hand, I've had some friends who are in the marijuana business. And they'll go out with their guys and entertain them and smooze them, but instead of going to a basketball game, they might take them to a strip club to have some fun with some girls, and that's part of their sales process. But I guess what you're doing is corporate sales, and you're prospecting, you're following up, but you have your own pipeline, they contact you, and I guess you also reach out to people when you close them. It's interesting to see the parallels, because for me, it just seems like such a different world, but there is a lot of similarities.
I mean, so with me, since I have more flexibility than the average IBM employee, right? Because IBM is a big company, but at the same time, we've also had struggles with innovation. So I'm part of the IBM transformation team, and in a way, I act like a startup inside of IBM. I'm an evangelist. That's my actual role. So I go out there and evangelize IBM, right? So I basically I act as a startup inside of IBM and help other large companies act as startups. So I partner with them to build disruptive applications using technology like Watson and mobile and big data. So I have So almost in a way, this is why I kind of love my role. I still get to have that startup mindset in a big company.
Gotcha. So when you're in IBM, what are some of the mindsets and core beliefs that you have that believe are allowing you to get the success that you want to close sales, make deals, and more effectively network with people?
One of my core beliefs is everything is on me, right? So that means that don't sit there waiting for something to happen, make it happen. Don't sit there wishing for a better life or for better business. Go out there and make it better, right? So I think it makes me more accountable, and it also gives me responsibility to go out there and change things and learn how to change it. If I don't know how to do something, I have to learn how to do it, right? And I think change is always good. I haven't been in the same role in IBM. I've always been changing roles, and it kind of keeps me on my feet, and I'm always learning something new. And every single time I learn something new, I can then apply that in totally different things I'm doing, right? And also being in a large company, it also forces me not to overinvest in side hustles that aren't really doing too well, right? Since I know my time is of the essence, I have to basically figure out what's working well, double down on that. This is why I love Amazon Business, right? It took me about 1 month to put together, and I was making about $4,000 coming in every month just from importing products from China to America and putting them online. And that runs on autopilot when I'm working with IBM. So things like that, I know I have less time, so I have to figure out what's the best thing to focus on each time.
In your present role, I imagine that because IBM has so much money, you have team members that are kind of helping you out and assisting with closing deals, closing sales, and also, helping you be an evangelist. How are those relationships working and function? How do the roles and responsibilities kind of work together?
Yeah, I mean, so the joke is that you can't go to an IBM meeting without having 10 IBMers per customer, right? I mean, so
Is that really how it is?
I mean, sometimes it's kind of like that to a point where IBMers like me try to fight and make sure everybody in the meeting is there because they're there for a reason, right? Because IBM, we have an expert in almost any single any single resource, whether it's sales, whether it's this particular product, whether it's this product and this product. There's an expert, somebody who basically has a PhD in every single product, right? If you talk to a customer for 4 different products, you can't bring them all in, right? So then there's a guy who knows everything at a high level, right? So being able to, almost in a way, navigate the corporate politics in the corporate world while still having rapport with people, right? Because sometimes, for example, this new job I got just from just building relationships inside of IBM, right? So my second line manager vouched for me and say, hey, this guy's amazing. You should promote him to this role, right? So being able to almost play the politics game inside a company, because in big companies it's always there. So being able to navigate that path while you're still out there closing your own deals, because everybody has value, but you can't use everybody in a deal.
So in say like a small company, the politics may be about whether some person should get credit for something else. And I know that in a large company, you probably have that kind of amplified.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are some of the biggest political challenges that you face that you think that I might want to be aware of as a small business owner?
I mean, from a large company perspective, sometimes employees will fight over a deal, right? Because let's say 2 people or two different teams both get comped on the product, right? But both teams can't sell the product. One team has to sell it, right? So let's say you have the one team that does purely big data, and the other team does cloud, right? The two things kind of overlap, right? So everybody will fight for that commission paycheck. So sometimes teams having those political battles inside, and trying to figure out how the company can still stay face in front of the customer is something that big companies have to go through almost every single month.
Got it.
So as a small company, I mean, if you're a small company, I mean, it's kind of hard to bring that to a small company, but maybe if you bring on other employees, just trying to work where everybody's incentives are aligned together.
Do you see yourself in a position in the long term where you're continuing to work for a large company like IBM and doing these ventures on the side? Or do you see yourself doing one or the other?
I mean, so eventually I'm gonna kind of jump full ship and kind of have my own business, full-time business. So that's kind of where I've been putting everything together. I mean, because I've definitely learned a lot from IBM and from Deloitte. I know these big companies, but eventually I want to venture out and do my thing full-time.
And what's going to be kind of the trigger point that makes you make that decision?
At this point, I feel like once I reach a point where I'm not learning as much and I'm not being challenged, so I think it kind of depends. But right now, I would say just based on the growth, if I feel like I can definitely grow a lot more by leaving the big corporate world, then I'll definitely do it. And I think it's going to happen in the next couple of years or so.
Yeah? Why do you say that?
It's a goal of mine. It's a plan.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's I was curious about that because so many people I know have just wanted that freedom. So I was curious whether or not you didn't want to necessarily chase that as much as, going down this corporate route. Because
Right.
I know other people who like that.
Yeah. So kind of going back to the example when I was working at Deloitte, I felt the same way, but I was able to find almost that perfect job in the corporate world where I can still have my freedom. If I didn't have that freedom, then yeah, I would probably have left a long time ago.
Okay. Now, when you're working all these different side jobs plus a main job, how does that affect your social life?
Oh, I mean, sometimes I have no social life. I mean, I used to back in college and after college, but once I'm kind of put my mind on something, it's tunnel vision. So right now I've kind of been, like right now my typical schedule is I'll work with IBM during the daytime, then after hours I'm working my side hustles. And sometimes all the way till past midnight, till 2 a.m. or so.
How many years have you been doing that?
Hardcore right now, 2 years. Then I kind of took a break from the business world of side hustles for about 2 years. Then prior to that, I was doing that for a bit. But every time I kind of find something I like and I go head down, I almost cut off social life. I mean, because I feel like I can still be social, but I have different ways of being social, right? So I'll work, for example, for 3 weeks, then go somewhere for a weekend for vacation with friends for a birthday. Right? Then work for a full month, then come out of Vegas here for a friend, right? So I kind of do it in quick spurts.
Cool. It's interesting for me to think about all these dynamics because I have entrepreneurial friends who have been in that startup mode for so long without a dating life or a social life just because they're working that, that hardcore hustle where it's like day and night working. And most entrepreneurs have to do that. And they're oftentimes, 9 out of 10, not supposed to be doing that. They're not in the right position. They're not in the right business concept or idea. And you create a situation where you kind of like marginalize that risk, put it together, but you're still in that hustle mode. Mm-hmm. So I'd be very curious to hear how it goes, 3 years from now, and seeing whether or not you decide to continue to push forward or get more involved in entrepreneurial ventures. Yeah. So yeah, thanks a lot for the interview. This has been
thanks for having me. Been a pleasure. Hey, this
Cheers.
is Ian, Ian Balina, Balina. Website is ianbalina.com. YouTube channel is Hacking the System.